Thank you so much for joining us today in celebration of our newest publication, Thompson Advises, JoEllen Brydon. I want to begin by acknowledging that the Art Gallery of Peterborough is located on Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. Today's occasion has me thinking about the ways in which we care for things and the ways in which we hold and share knowledge through generations. And of course, in my role, which as a curator involves caring for our permanent collection, I think about this from the aspect of collections care, which often tries to freeze time, to stop change, to keep things as they are. But this idea is impossible and frankly impractical. Things change, everything is changing all the time. Sometimes things are changing slowly, so slowly that those changes are imperceptible. The difference between a season and an eon, perhaps. Things are starting to change in collections management, and we're starting to think more practically about temperature settings and humidity controls, slowly letting go of these Western ideals as we test them against their benefits and the costs to our world. Because this idea of freezing change, of stopping time, of seeing change as bad is against nature, and it's really a colonial idea. In another aspect, as a curator, I know this, though, and I'm trained to know this, to understand that context changes meaning and to try to chart pathways to navigate these things. And I think this exhibition really understands that. Today we're launching the Catalogue, documenting an exhibition built out of an archive, and it's interested in what changes, what's recognizable, what resonates through generations. And I'm thrilled to have the artist JoEllen Brydon here, along with Seck Langill, a contributor to the publication, as well as Peggy, who will moderate the conversation. But we are missing a key person on this panel. Rhona Wenger, who is the curator of this exhibition, is in Belgium, and we did think for a minute about having her here remotely, but that's also really unfair because who wants to be? Nobody wants to be, and also, it would just be kind of cruel with the change of time. So instead what we've got is, thanks to Zach Ward, we've got her here introducing this evening for us.
Hi, my name is Rhona Wenger. I am the guest curator of the exhibition Thompson Advises. JoEllen Brydon first introduced me to her concept for this exhibition several years ago when I was the curator of the Grimsby Public Art Gallery. Thompson Advises has the additional attraction of being based on the journalism career of JoEllen's mother, Jean Armstrong Brydon. Jean was a friend and colleague when she and I both worked at the Art Gallery of Peterborough in the mid-1990s. At that time, I was unaware of Jean's career in journalism, including her role as the Globe and Mail's advice columnist. Working on this exhibition provided an incredible opportunity for me to get to know Jean in a much more profound way than I ever would have expected to be able to do so long after her passing. As I began working with JoEllen on this project, I realized how very little I knew about Canadian women in journalism, as well as about the development and role of advice columns and the people who wrote them. As a young teen, I was a regular reader of Dear Ann Landers, the column that appeared in the papers my parents subscribed to. My friends and I read Dear Ann Landers primarily for entertainment. We laughed at what we considered to be stupid questions. We were curious about the type of person who would ask a complete stranger in a newspaper for advice. We scoffed at the silliness of it all in our superior teen way. Fortunately, I approached Elizabeth Thompson with a great deal more humility in search of a deeper, more adult understanding of the advice column phenomenon. I did not find an overwhelming quantity of research about advice columns. It is clear, however, that the late 19th and early to mid-20th centuries were an important and fertile period for their establishment and growth. This initially coincided with the mass movement of people from rural to urban settings, often drawn to work opportunities provided by industrialization. The result was a disconnect between individuals and the support systems they had relied on in prior established communities. The wisdom and advice once provided by extended family and community elders was far less available in cities crowded with busy strangers. The advice column evolved to fill that gap. Interestingly, most advice columnists were, and still are, women, and the columns originally appeared in the women's section of newspapers. Columnists typically presented the persona of a mature, older woman, knowledgeable about the ways of the world, with a wealth of wisdom to draw on. Jean's papers revealed that this wealth of wisdom was not inherent, but the result of hard work and considerable research. It was not an easy job, and it was important to get it right. Letter writers trusted the columnists and depended on them to help navigate some of the most difficult and challenging times in their lives. A final thought is the importance of advice columns as documents that record and explore the societal norms of the time in which they were written. JoEllen's selection of letters for the exhibition clearly illustrated the range of issues that were of concern to individuals in the 1960s and 1970s. Times were changing, and some writers found new ideas disorienting or even frightening. For others, the concern was that change did not happen fast enough, and that others lacked understanding and the ability to adapt. For the most part, the advice that Jean dispensed through Elizabeth Thompson Advises provided balance and perspective with regard to the issues of concern. She seems to both nudge those who found change challenging to be a little more open to seeing alternative viewpoints, and to encourage those who were moving more quickly to pause and consider possible consequences. She provided her audience with a sympathetic ear, sensible advice, and reasonable alternatives, something that we can all benefit from. Although the internet and the ever-present Dr. Google may now be where many turn when faced with life's questions, advice columns still exist. People still ask questions, and answers are still forthcoming. My connection with this exhibition has encouraged me to pay more attention to the column written by Lisi Tesher that appears in my paper of choice. Questions still address contemporary concerns. Lisi's answers are thoughtful, considered, and often witty. I like to think that she and Jean could have shared insights and anecdotes and a unique type of human understanding. Thank you, and do enjoy the rest of your evening.
Before we go too much farther, because I wasn't certain if she was going to be here, I do want to acknowledge Brooke Hanna, who's here. Brooke, can you stand up? Thanks. And yay. And Zach, who's already standing, but for different reasons. Zach did the photography for this publication, and Brooke really did the major stick handling of the design for this publication. I want to also acknowledge Matt Stimson, who's not here because he's in Halifax. But thank you so much to the We Design team for their great design work on this. So we're going to have a conversation tonight, and we've had a number of conversations in this space, and it's just been so wonderful, and it's made so much sense in the show that this is, which is so much about dialogue and exchange. We've had a live letter reading, we've done the artist talk, we did an opening reception, but it even feels like there's been more. And it's just been such a joy for me to work with the two of you guys on this, and Rhona, of course, and then Peggy got to connect with this exhibition through so many different directions. So I'm going to introduce Peggy as the moderator here, but also share a little bit about about other reasons why I'm excited for her to be here. So. Where do I have it? Oh gosh, okay. So for the past year and a half, Peggy Town has been an enthusiastic program assistant here at the Art Gallery, and some of you may know her from her many years of involvement at Art Space, which is where I first saw your face, for sure, and as a staff member in the 90s, and more recently as a co-curator of their 50th anniversary exhibition and creator of Crossing Paths, a tour of culturally significant sites and stories connecting art and community. And I also know that Peggy's here because Peggy knows both of these people and has a long-standing understanding of their work and how they've come to be where they are. And it's been a real joy for me to watch you interact with the kids and adults that come through this space connect and trying to unfold this exhibition for them. So thank you so much for that. And I'm going to turn it over to you to lead the rest of the conversation. Yeah? There will be time at the end to ask questions if you'd like, but we're going to let them.
Okay, thank you, Finn. Thanks, everyone. And JoEllen and Caroline, I'm very excited to be talking to you this evening. And this celebration of the launch of this beautiful catalog, I hope you all get one upstairs. The catalog is full of documents. It documents years of work. It has beautiful photographs, as was mentioned, and it's just an incredible of the photographs of this whole show. It's better to be here, but the catalog is a lovely, lovely souvenir of this show. And I believe 7 pieces of very engaging writing, and both of you have written for the catalog. I just want to start, I'll start with you, Joe, if you could both speak to how you came to work on this project, just to ground it, if you would.
I just wanted to mention one other thing. Peg was a friend of my mom's, too. She knew her, and she got to know her fairly well. Okay, back to the beginning. We were moving my mother from her condo to, from her apartment to a condo, and there were masses and masses of boxes saying Elizabeth Thompson, but they were a mess. Like, they were just boxes and boxes of paper. So I asked her, Mom, do you want me to take this home and organize it? And she said, yes, and write a book, do something with it, write a book. So I thought, okay, that's my permission to go ahead. And I thought about doing something like this. I don't think she meant this, but I thought about it, but I put it all away and didn't pull it out again. I did some of the organizing, but I pulled it out again after she passed away and started to go through the columns. And I realized that my work has always been based on narrative and stories, and I realized that here's a treasure trove of stories that my mother has given me.
Not sure this exactly follows Joan's, but so we started to talk about this exhibition when you first began to look at the archive, and we were talking about where you might exhibit it and different people that we knew in common who might be interested. And it was interesting the way the exhibition evolved and the way the work evolved as you uncovered the archive and came across one letter after another. And we didn't, I mean, I was busy and we didn't talk a lot, but I was pretty surprised, actually, when I realized that the body of work was so massive. And because I knew there were letters, and we talked about doing the videos and things, and then when the exhibition emerged as, it's really substantial. How many paintings are in this? Do you know? 25 paintings, and then the audio works, and there's the audio installations, and there are also the video works. It's a huge exhibition, and I was able to see it at the Grimsby Art Gallery in its first iteration, with when Rhona curated it, and then we spoke a little bit as it was going into this space, which is very, very different from the Grimsby space. But I mean, JoEllen and I have known each other for decades, and I've always been excited about her work, and I've written about it before, but not quite as extensively as I was able to for this one.
Thank you. So I am very intrigued by that moment when your mother gave you that archive of her work, and I think that the responsibility must have felt kind of massive or immense in some way. I don't know. I was wondering about that, and I just wondered if this is a little bit I'm musing a little bit here, but I wonder if there were times during the project when it felt as though you were conversing with her, maybe even seeking her advice into how to approach it.
First of all, the responsibility, I think, at that time was moving her from the house to the condo. And that was overwhelming, right? Do you remember that? My brother Mark and Sue were here. They were involved in that. But I think it was like as I went through the letters, I realized that I found, I don't know if everybody knows the story, but I found a letter that was about me. And I knew she'd asked us to write her letters all the time, right? And she asked her friends, and she needed content, and she also wanted to introduce certain topics. So she'd write letters on her own, posing as somebody else. But I kept finding letters of her posing as me, which was, that was overwhelming. I had a problematic relationship with her early on, and I had to take breaks. I was floored by some of the things I found, and so I had to take breaks, and long breaks. And as Caroline said, the whole thing took years, and that was okay. I remember thinking, I'm just going to do this. I don't care when it is, or I'm not going to feel like it's a deadline or anything like that. And eventually, and people kept saying, that I talked to them about, they said, when's the show? Well, wait a minute. I'm not going to think about a show. I'm just going to work at this for a long period of time.
Having gone through a little bit of that myself with my mother, like moving her, inheriting her things, it does take a long time, and you have to do it when you're ready. But I mean, I love that you had this, that you were inspired still to make something out of it. Like she knew you and knew that was that you go somewhere with it. Yeah. And there's at least, 20 columns maybe-ish in the show?
In the show?
Or, I mean, if you have 25 paintings. Okay.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I think so.
Okay, ish. And I just was wondering
yeah, okay, go ahead.
I was wondering if, how did you decide, you're going through all of these, I guess that just sort of sparked your imagination. How did you decide which ones to paint?
They had to be, like she was a really good writer, and she had a lot of, I wanted the topic to be interesting. I wanted it to be well written, well articulated, which most of them were, and it needed to work visually. That was there were lots of, she was a socialist, and she was the first advice columnist to tackle social issues. And that was very interesting, but often there'd be a really great column and it wouldn't work visually. So I put them aside and kept them, and some of them are in the scrapbook upstairs, and I'll use them at some point.
Right.
But some of them are in here.
Okay, thank you. And Caroline, you're an artist, a curator, and also have second word.
I'm a mother.
You're a mother. Yes, you're both mothers. Yeah, that's lovely.
Mother.
Also, I guess I wanted to ask you about making those kinds of choices in your own work. How can you speak to the process of selection in terms of how we decide? I don't know. I guess
In relation to this exhibition, or more generally? In relation to this exhibition.
Into the exhibition, yeah.
I think, I've known this work for a long time, JoEllen's practice. I'm aware of it. And I've always, people who know me know that I've been very busy for a very long time. And if I've been writing, I've just been writing off the side of my desk. And this was the first time in a long time that I was able to spend the kind of time that's needed to kind of investigate a body of work like this and to look really closely. So the works that I chose to write about for the catalog were works that just struck me as being significant to the trajectory that Jean was covering in these letters. I think it's such an interesting time to be writing as a woman, as a feminist, and because I think she was a feminist, that's the impression that I have. So those things that I think that spoke to my own interest in feminism, its history, and also especially second wave feminism that is kind of covered through the letters. And one of the pieces is it's just astonishing, and it's this is where you need the catalog, right, to pull out the titles of the young woman who's telling her parents she's choosing to be a lesbian. Mm-hmm. That letter is written in 1974. Homosexuality was removed from the DSM in 1973. So it's a very radical thing for someone to write, for the parents to write, to publicly be declaring their discomfort with their daughter's life. And so those kinds of things really struck me. I also, I'm really interested in the domestic interiors, and I hadn't really thought about them being as critiques. And then I realized, and this is in my essay, so it's not really a spoiler, but there are no straight lines in JoEllen's domestic interiors, and that sets everything kind of askew. The perspective is kind of there, but it's not really honored. So I saw it as I was just excited to look at the work closely and notice those characteristics that speak to the content that JoEllen is examining when she's doing the paintings. So those are the kinds of works that were drawn to when I was writing.
Great.
Yes, you can't write about 23 paintings in a curatorial essay.
Yeah, I was just going to say I wanted to bring one other thing up in choosing the paintings. My daughter, Eva Fisher's worked with me from the very beginning of this project. She's been a huge part of it. And she and I would, like if I found a letter, I'd pass it by her, right? Yeah, and we went back and forth on which would work and why it would work. She actually did all the technical work, like the phones and the QR codes, and also she did the. She and I worked together on the films, like the creative content, the costumes and the props and all of that. So she was a great resource. Because does this work for people your age? And does this work? Yeah.
I'm distracted by my notes because I really like the tangent that you're on, which is good.
Okay.
Well, no, I was actually thinking about the wavy lines and what you write about in your essay. But I was also here with a group of students, adult students who were English as a second language students from Fleming College. And one of their instructors they were all reading your paintings because they really were not able at this stage to read the columns. So they were gathering around, looking at it was amazing. And of course, speaking in their first language about it. So I didn't understand what they were talking about, but it was really, there was a lot of energy in the room while they read these paintings, is the way I put it. It was just fantastic. And the instructor who spoke English said to me, I'm looking at these interiors and these wavy lines. I'm really struck by these wavy lines. And she said, but family life is like that. It's messy. It's not a straight line. And it was such a simple thing, but she was really into it. Anyway.
You have no idea how many years I tried to paint properly.
Really?
This was not a conscious choice. Finally, I decided It's good, it's fine.
That leads me to this other question I wrote. Let's talk more about your painting. And if there's a way that you could tell us a bit about how you found the way. I mean, we know I think most people here know your work, but it's a real signature style. It's delightful. How did you get there? To this? Yeah, to your style. If you can't answer that, I mean, it's just... You've just been painting for...
Yeah, I don't remember consciously deciding how to do it or what to do it. I just started doing it when I was young. And somebody gave my brother a set of oil paints, and he didn't want them, so he gave them to me, and then it just went from there. I just did it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this question, just as your mother occasionally, you were talking about, had to make up stories for her column, did you invoke your artistic license at any point and push a particular story beyond its original scope?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Just one. There was the one, it's over here, Call Home, was a column, and it was at Christmas time. Somebody wrote her a letter saying that their one wish for Christmas was for their son to call home. And it's just a very touching story, and she obviously was moved by it, and she said that she was going to give space in the column just for this at Christmas time. And so the first painting is he's in a room somewhere, wherever he is, and the second painting is him going home. So I decided that's the way that was going to go. It's funny, I found it really difficult, not really difficult, but I found it a little bit frustrating because there'd be amazing stories. She'd give advice, and you'd want to know, what did you do? Like, what happened? That was what happened in the end.
Well, that particular story, that's my hometown, Woodstock.
Oh, is it?
And it simply made me wonder, I wonder who that was. Not that I knew everyone in Woodstock, but you know.
Who it was, yeah.
Interesting.
Well, the name's on the letter.
Oh.
Does it look like Woodstock?
Sure. It's Ontario, yeah.
It is.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about this particular project in terms of, generally you work alone in your studio, right? So so can you talk to us about what it was like to suddenly work with a cast of thousands, if you will, on this project?
Yeah, that just happened. I wanted to do the audio. I wanted to record the letters and give them a personal, make them more of a personal thing. And then Laurel Pollock came up with the idea of doing a residency at Trent Radio. And so I hired amateur and professional actors from town, and everybody came in, and that was so cool. It was just so moving to see everybody I asked just not even think about it and show up, and do these things. And I was thinking a few weeks ago, how did I get it? How did that happen? Like, why do I suddenly have the whole city working on this thing with me? And I realized it's because of the content. All of these stories were all kinds of different people. So I think she worked with all these people. So that sort of dictated the way the thing went. And it was a treat. It was so much fun, yeah, to work with all these amazing people.
And I think also forging new relationships along the way as well, right? I mean, you know these people, but
yeah,
there's just something like an extra bond. Like
the reading was really fun. I had professional and amateurs, voice actors doing, and we did a reading here a month ago or something, and where they all got up and read their letters, and I thought I was directing it, but the professional actors suddenly were taking over and saying, no, the sound is better over here. No, we have to all go over here. And there were like 30 people involved in this, and I said, I think you guys are going over here, and there's a whole line of them passing me saying, nope, we're going over here. It was great. I loved the way they just took over, and it was really fun.
Fantastic.
I didn't know how that was going to go.
There is a lot of there's a lot of love in this room. I think it's definitely a labor of love. So there are so many what I'm struck by are the layers of, like, yes, I knew your mother, I knew you first, I know you. I just feel like there's so many layers of relationships. Anonymous, I don't know the people that wrote the letters, and I'm imagining those, all the relationships in this work. Some are more complex than others. I'm just wondering if you could speak about those complexities a bit, either of you, in terms of the layers.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to think about, so also the way they speak across time, right? So there are relationships that occurred a long time ago, right? So in the 60s, 70s, when she was writing these letters, and there's this relationship between your mom and the person who's written to her, who's anonymous. And then there's the relationship with the painting, which is not written, but it's interesting that you're saying that those folks were reading the works that are painted now, and the way they speak back and forth across time. And then there's your own relationship, and I think it's really important to emphasize, and I know you downplay it a little bit, how difficult I think it is, and it was for you to do some of this work, because of the way your family's conflicts or experiences were fictionalized for the column, and the way you recognized that was the case more than you knew, and that was only discovered after your mom's passing, right? After you read these letters, and we discussed this. You and I have discussed this, and we discussed this in relation to the catalog, and in relation to what JoEllen contributed to the catalog and the tone of that, and because it's tricky, and as you said, you've had a difficult relationship with your mom when you were young and a teen, and that changed over time as you had daughters and yourself and grandchildren, and your relationships all change. But I think it's important to note how generous you have been with this exhibition in terms of your mom and your memory of your mom, because it doesn't necessarily go that way. Things can get bad, especially if you go into therapy and you suddenly it's like, this person is my big problem, and so I think it's really a incredibly generous reading of your history and your family with this exhibition. And there are certain works that I would point to, and I write about it in my essay, that I think demonstrate that joy, that and delight that you were able to bring to this story of you and your mother.
Well, I didn't want it to be about, like, I knew obviously the conflict and then finding letters about that. I didn't want this to be about that. Like, I just didn't want this to be about that. I wanted it to be about her work and all these amazing stories. But at the same time, I thought I should be honest. So I was trying to be honest, and because that's what's interesting, right? Everybody wants to know the gossip and the drama. But so yeah, that was probably the hardest thing in the whole project, is trying to find a balance. The columns that were about me back in the 60s and the columns that were about me, there was a shift. There was a shift. She was she was a good mother. She was, but she was very sweet with that little girl, and it gradually you could see a gradual troubling happening. Which, when I had kids, we all came back, everything was fine. And she was amazing. She was a socialist. She taught me all kinds of values. I admired her. And once I had kids, both of us had something more important to deal with, to think about.
Oh, thank you. That's a lot of really good information. I really appreciate I do agree. I think it is very honest. It feels very generous, and I think she would be delighted.
I don't know.
You don't know, but I do. I feel like she would. I mean, look at her. She was amazing. JoEllen, do you have any other plans for the archive? Like, I'm sure you have a lot more stuff. Do you have other plans in terms of, like, putting it into the Globe and Mail archive or anything like that?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to look into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they have their own archive,
Yeah.
but an archivist at the Globe did dig some things up for me. And I'm not sure if he's working through the city archives or the Globe, but I will look into that.
Okay.
It'd be good to get rid of all these things.
I'm kind of at a spot where I'm not sure where to go. I don't know what our time is like. I don't know if there's some. Yeah, I think so. Maybe we should open it up to the floor. You think?
Yeah, just on that last note, like when you were a kid, did you read her columns that were about you, or you just read them?
Oh, no, I wasn't that interested in the columns. I mean, I was young enough that I wasn't interested in the work, but I did know that she was trying to get us sometimes to write letters, I remember, and the fact that she was Elizabeth Thompson, we were bound to secrecy about that, and that there was an allure to that for a kid. But other than that, no. I did read the odd one, but I don't remember anything about them, and wasn't really that interested at the time.
Kind of like what Rhona said in the video, like she read all that stuff and thought it's not very interesting to us as children, I think.
Yeah.
There's a question there.
Do you imagine if she picked a favorite, do you imagine what would be? Leather pens, 80s to accompany it? Which one would be her favorite?
That's a good question.
Really good.
That's a really good question. I think maybe Halloween. Yeah, because that was about me, and she told everybody that story about that little girl who went out to be a witch and realized she was afraid of witches. Yeah, I'm guessing. Yeah, that's a good question. Thanks. I hadn't.
Eva, this is actually a question for Caroline.
Okay.
Who Mom has described as a really significant champion of her work and a really significant mentor.
Yeah, Caroline's been. I was going to say that earlier. She's been a mentor to me since the beginning of my career. I've discussed every one of these projects that I've done with her, and she's been a huge help putting things into perspective.
It's been my pleasure.
I want to hear what you find about this work so intriguing and how you've seen it change over the years.
I think, I know this is, I think one of the most important things about JoEllen's work is the style that she's been able to maintain over time. So, you don't put much stock in it, but it actually is quite a significant style, and you could have changed that. I mean, because you sound like you said, if I could paint properly, what does that mean? That's meaningless. For me, it has no meaning at all, and it bears no meaning in relation to this body of work, because it's painted beautifully and it's painted in your style, and the style like has allowed you to deal with narratives that are very difficult. And it, because you're comfortable in that, you're not fussing over the form. You know, you have complete command of the form. So then you can, you know, go where you want with the content in really interesting ways. Mm-hmm. So I find that really, really fantastic about JoEllen's work, and also that you keep challenging yourself. Like, I would never do this. I would never decide I was going to take on my mother's columns and write and paint pictures about that. That seems to me to be a really hard thing to do, because it would be so, you know, there'd be so much emotion involved in that, and it would be, I think, hard to get the distance. Like, you would have to be able to maintain a distance and a professional distance in order to do the body of work. So I find that really kind of remarkable that you've been able to do that. And the content itself is difficult. You know, these are, I mean, not that, I mean, it's a beautiful painting, the bra burning painting. At the time, though, it was really terrible times for women, mm-hmm. you know, as they were gaining their independence and fighting for equality. And I think you've done an amazing, delightful, whimsical job of dealing with that kind of content that could be, you know, definitely represented in a very difficult and very different way. So yeah, I just love the work.
Thank you.
And, yeah. But I'm not uncritical, actually. So
yeah, no, and I was going to say all this about my perspective or whatever. Years ago, one of the most important things another artist said to me was, and it was Stephanie Lehman, you know her, she told, I had done a drawing of a chair and a lamp and a whatever. It was a little line drawing of, and it was all out of whack. And I was quite a bit younger then, and I said to her, I can't, and she said, it doesn't matter that some things were too big for the other things and all of that. She said, all that matters here is you've got the warmth of that corner of the room. And I thought, oh. And it kind of, my whole brain just went, okay, all of this doesn't matter. All this other stuff, stop struggling. And anytime I've tried to, back in the day when I did try to do it properly, it would just be contrived if I you know, tried to go. I got crappy marks in any art class I ever took, ever tried to take, and yeah.
Back to what Carolyn was talking about, the emotion of your work and so on. There's so much humor in it, but there's a lot of other emotion too. Did you ever find yourself weeping?
No. No. No, I don't think so, because.
But with each painting, there's also a lot of different things and other people's lives.
Yeah. I did get that, you know. But by the time I'm doing the painting, I've already got it mapped out, and I've already gone through that whole process. But yeah, I do. I don't know. I don't know if I consciously strive for that or not. The one over here, the thread of the boys and whiskey, is, I don't know if anybody's listened to if you could pick up the phone, you can listen to it. It's quite disturbing, and that, you know, that kind of intrigued me. I thought. I thought these are unbelievable. Like what the columns that people wrote. It was about spanking, and there's child abuse is spelled out in that, and I thought, and then I started putting it together, and I thought, should I do this? Should I really do this? This is horrible, and people are going to be upset by this. And then I thought, well, Mom did it, and so I did it. She gave me the courage to, no, you've got to do it. So she let all those letters come in, and she published them. And then she put them all in their place beautifully.
I'm thinking about your mom and her keeping her secret, her identity secret, and her power as a feminist. And I'm thinking about secrecy and truth, the truths of these people's lives and the letters that they wrote. And I'm wondering, and I don't know if you had this conversation with her ever, I hope you did, but did she ever express to you that she felt appreciated and understood and heard in this journey, or were those lives for her very separate? Was this part of a job function?
She was very modest, and she didn't like to draw attention to herself, and that came from her family. There was, don't make a big shout about that. So no, I don't think she never talked about herself in that way. I think she just did it. Mm-hmm.
So after this great accomplishment, I wonder what's on the horizon.
Nothing. I can die now. I don't know. I'm
going to speak to this because every time JoEllen does a gigantic project, and we all assume that that's going to be it, then another one comes up. I mean, the one that the Museum of Civilization owns. What's that? What's the name of that? Pride of Peterborough. Massive installation about this person who tried to paddle from Peterborough, Ontario, to Peterborough, England, and it was huge. It was a huge undertaking, and it was sculptural, and I just thought, whoa, that's like magnum opus, and it's like, no, it's not the end. So I think there'll just be another huge body of work that comes along at some point. That's like
God,
this.
Please.
Yes, go ahead.
I've got grandchildren now. That's a huge body of work.
Is there one painting that you regret not having done, or that you're thinking needed to be done? Or did it show up with this?
There's a few that I wish I could have used, but I really did feel like it was a complete thing once I did have it done. I mean, there's still a few that I look at and think, but I think I'm pretty happy with what did get included. I do keep thinking of what I can do with the other letters. Yes. That's an interesting story. She stopped. That's all we all knew. She wanted to retire from it. She had to write these columns at one point, three of them a week, every week, and so I know that she was wanting to stop. But after they ended the women's section at the Globe, it was all the women's section. Elizabeth Thompson carried on, but it would be somewhere else in the paper. There'd be less. There weren't 3 a week anymore. They weren't as consistent, and she wasn't getting the content she needed. So this is when she was trying to get her friends would write her letters. She'd make up letters, and I have to say, making up letters for a advice column is part of the craft. They want to introduce a topic. Like if she wanted to introduce a topic, she'd make up a letter, and the readers would go with it. Letters would come in arguing. Sometimes she loved to argue, so she would, have some sort of a little twist in it. But what happened in the end was, and it's interesting how I found this out. I found a series of letters between her and the main editor of the Globe, because they started reading her mail and opening the letters at the office and verifying that these people were real. And she wrote in the last page of the catalog, there's a picture of all these letters between her and the editor, and we selected quotes from them because her letters to them were so well written about telling about the craft of vice column and how they shouldn't, how vulnerable people write in. They wouldn't write in if they knew somebody was opening their mail, and they wouldn't want to give their names. And so she ended up resigning because they were doing that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so when we're writing with family, that stuff is complicated as well, right? Writing along those lines. And so it seems to me that she was an artist with words, but that you're also on that cusp of fiction, nonfiction, and painting.
Oh, that's a great analogy. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Another question back there, yeah. Yes, go ahead.
How did she get started?
She was really modest, and she wasn't good at interviews and finding a job, but she was a good writer. And when she took journalism at Western Ontario, and the funny thing, all these things I know from reading letters. I have every letter that I got a steamer trunk from her, and I said, Mom, when we were moving her again, I said, Mom, what's in this trunk? And she said, every letter that anyone ever wrote me. And I thought, oh, great. Okay, we're going to put this over here. So eventually I did go through all these letters, and there were wonderful letters from her journalism class, who were all good writers, and so they were really entertaining. And there were letters back and forth from this one prof saying, Jean, I've alerted so-and-so, go and talk to them. She was trying to get her a job. And she could see that she could write well, and she kept trying to help her and set her up. Well, this prof was Elizabeth Thompson for like a couple of years or something. And so I'm pretty sure she moved into it because of that woman, yeah. Who also probably wanted to quit, Mark. Mark is my stepbrother. He lived all of this, too.
The first time I was an economics student. I was the oldest brother. I was out of the house with the two families staying together.
Yeah.
And I was an economics student, so I was sort of obliged to read the Globe and Mail. So I would read through it, and I'd come to Elizabeth Thompson column. And one day I read one. It was all about me. It was about the older, cynical, sarcastic brother who was going to corrupt her kids.
Wow.
Then I started, next time I'd read the Globe and Mail, it was like a grenade you were.
Yes, yeah. What have we done now?
Fortunately, many of them are not about me, and that was a relief. But it was a revelation to find out that your average place columnist, writes many of their own letters, and you can see why, because, well, as she told me once, so many of the letters I And the notion that she wanted to introduce topics of her own was also a strong part.
Yeah, yeah.
But Gina was a great lady. Our families, as they came together, our family was coming out of a very traumatic time involving bankruptcy, prison, death, and other light topics.
And we, yeah, but yeah, both, yeah. Yeah.
So it was she was a great thing. And as we both got older, we ended up having a good relationship.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Are any of these paintings the letters? Any of the letters ghostwritten letters by your mom? Do you know which ones
Oh, yeah.
were fiction and which ones were not?
I know which ones, like the ones that she wrote or she fictionalized were not, it's not fiction, it was about our family. And so, yeah, yep, yeah. Yep. Yes.
I wonder if any of the wallpaper real. This one over here, the yellow one, I can almost feel it falling on my face in a room that I slept in once.
I love wallpaper. Oh, so your question, is it real? Oh, I thought you, yes, I do look at a lot of wallpaper, but I don't end up doing it the way that is. I just get the gist of it. You can't, wallpaper is so complicated. It'd be a completely different style to try to duplicate it, but often I just get the feel of it and go with that. Yeah.
Works good.
Thank you, yes. The what?
Oh, the houses, I think they're in a snow hill.
Here. It's okay, what is it?
Snowy hill.
Yeah, it's a snowy hill.
Oh, it's a hill.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Did she ever get in trouble? With the higher ups at the paper?
Just that last time. Yeah. That I'm aware of. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much to everyone who's joined us, and thank you so much to our three speakers. I am constantly just like, I don't know, excited, I guess, by the amount of more nuance and more things and details that come out as we give more space to talk about this work. And yeah, I'm sure there's more to come, whether it's more about this or something totally different. We do have more snacks and refreshments upstairs. We'll tidy the chairs away. And of course, there's books upstairs. And if you buy a book today, at the very least today, you get a special something tucked into the back. JoEllen has added photocopies of 7 special letters into the back in little vellum envelopes. So now is always the best time to get one, and we've got a table upstairs for you to sign books. So thank you so much. Thank you guys so much.